Well, most of the time, when you're presenting, when you're speaking, you want to be engaging and interesting to your audience and to interconnect with them and to share things. But if you ever find yourself at a time when you decide you really want to annoy your audience, you really want to tick them off, you really want to upset them and make sure they won't listen to what you have to say, there are 3 simple things you can do. You can use them one at a time, or you can do all 3 together and kind of scatter them throughout your presentation. But there are things that are guaranteed to annoy your audience and possibly to get them so annoyed they stop listening to you. I don't know exactly in what situation you might want to have this happen, but if you do want to annoy your audience, we're going to talk today about 3 simple things you can do. And they all have to do with how you handle your body on stage. Because believe it or not, your body is kind of a cue to the audience about how to react. And if you hold your audience one way, your audience will be very interconnected and interested in you. And if you do different things to your body, you can turn your audience off just like that. One method we'll talk about is just a way to shut yourself down for the audience. A way to shut yourself down for the audience and make it clear that you don't want really them to get too close to you. It's a simple gesture. It's commonly used and it's highly effective to shut the audience down, keep them their distance. Another gesture that you can use on stage indicates that you've got better things to be doing. That it's not that big a deal, that you don't really care that much about it, and you certainly don't care that much about your audience. And again, this gesture is used a lot. It's used so much, people might be sort of accepting of it, but it's the sort of thing you do when you indicate that really it's just not that important to you. You're just too cool to be bothered about any of them. So if they want to look at you, fine. If they don't, it just doesn't really matter. Pay attention or don't, I don't care, this gesture says. And then there's a third gesture, a simple gesture, that basically indicates that you're a little nervous, a little scared, a little afraid, and you really don't want to be there. This gesture, again, is also highly used and very effective. So if at some time you decide you want to annoy, alienate, or just get rid of the audience entirely, today you're going to learn how to make it happen. And we'll go through these 3 simple things you can do. Because it can be difficult out there interconnecting and relating with your audience. And sometimes you just want to take a break, maybe. You decide, so what? So what about you? Who cares? Certainly not me. Doesn't matter. Besides, I'm better than you. And I'm a little bit nervous about this whole speaking thing anyway. And if you want to communicate that to your audience, and it's amazing how many people seem to want to communicate that to your audience, judging by the ways that speakers present, well, you can learn that very simply. You'll have to be careful about where you decide that you want to use these gestures. It's always possible once you understand these gestures, you decide you never want to use them again because you don't want to send that signal to your audience. But if you do want to send those sort of signals to your audience, at least now you'll be able to do it from a self-aware point. You'll be aware of the sort of things you're doing when you're really, really being annoying to your audience. And the first thing to do, you want to annoy your audience. A simple thing you can do, something that will get everyone feeling that you, the presenter, are basically out there to kind of lord it over the audience. That you, the presenter, are large and in charge, and frankly, you don't really care about the audience. This will annoy some, this will really annoy some, and a very few it'll really tick off. So, want to upset your audience with a simple gesture? This is a good gesture to use, because it automatically establishes the speaker as the authority. It's the one large and in charge. And the audience out there, they're just there to be heard by the speaker. The speaker talks down to the audience and knows better than the audience. Great gesture. So simple, widely used out there. All you have to do is take your arms and do this. Already, you can feel the power. You're locked in. You're certain. You're the one in charge. You look out on the audience. You're king over all of those people out there. They should all just listen to you. Pay attention to you. Because who really cares what they say anyway? You've got both hands in, protected. You're completely blocked from the audience. You're completely shut down to any response, any concern from the audience. It's all about you up there on the stage. You make yourself look even bigger, more imposing. And putting the arms across like this, not only are you blocked off once from the audience, you're blocked off twice. Not only that, your hands are locked together. You're not going to get any gestures out of this way of standing. You're not even going to be able to interact with the audience. Gestures are impossible. Any actual interaction, any actual interconnection with the audience is impossible. And there you are, large and in charge, and just telling the audience how it's really all is, how it really all works. It's a great, great gesture for that. Because the one thing the audience hates is to be talked down to. And when somebody comes out with this gesture, you know they're talking down to that audience. It's the same gesture a father uses when their son acts up. Son comes up and he says, "Son, go to your room. I'm very disappointed in you." Then the father comes in and says, "Son, you've misbehaved. You've done horrible things. I'm very disappointed. This is very bad." And that's kind of it. This is the authority gesture. This is the talking down gesture. This is the I don't care about you, I'm the one in charge, shut up and listen gesture. And for some reason, probably because they really want to annoy their audience, a lot of speakers out there use this gesture. Maybe just a little bit. Maybe when crossing from one side of the stage to the other. But it really sets them up like that to annoy their audience. Very quickly. Instantly the audience thinks, oh, this is just a know-it-all. They don't care about me. They're just going to tell me how things are. This is the way it is. Shut up and get used to it. Ha ha ha. Like a king. Charge of everything. Very annoying gesture. So simple. So easy. So useful. Just take your two hands, fold them together, folded arms. It works so well. So very well. Just remember, you want to annoy your audience, you want to seem you're large and in charge, you don't really care about them, what they say doesn't matter. You're like the father who's scolding their son. All you have to do is stand up in front of them and look at them just like this. Another highly useful way to annoy your audience is to make it appear like it's no big deal. Like you really could care less. Like it's just they're doing their thing, you're doing your thing, and that's kind of it. You didn't really prepare. You're just kind of having a chat here. You haven't really worked anything up. You're just kind of making it up as you go along. And the audience out there is thinking, I'm sitting around to hear this guy making up stuff on stage. And this gesture is really useful if you want to show how cool you are. You show you're cool, you're comfortable, you're fine. You know, it's no big deal. You haven't really given a lot of work into this sort of thing. It's just you're just there to kind of chat. Now, for some people, they're okay with that sort of casual approach. But for other people, they're going to find it annoying. And maybe, if you're lucky, upsetting. Because they figure you didn't do the work to really prepare what the heck you're going to say. You're making it up as you go along, and you're trying to cover it by looking too cool for school. And that'll really annoy people. The gesture is very simple. It's used a lot. All you have to do is to take your hands, pull back your coat a little bit, put your hands in your pockets. One thing you'll notice is that when your hands are out like this, kind of notice how your hands are loose, etc. But just take them out, pull back the coat a little bit, put it in your pocket. Yeah, that's it. Hands in the pockets. Hands in the pockets is a great way. It's that casual look. Sometimes you do it with the one hand, like you lean up against something. That's really good too. Because then it looks like you just kind of sitting there having a chat. You aren't really worked up, preparing anything. You're just kind of talking, you know. Hey, let's just kind of talk here. Hey, you see the comedians do that. They come out, they do their shtick, and you look like you're doing shtick up there. Hey, I'm not doing a presentation. No, I'm too cool for that. No, I got my hands in my pockets. We're ready to go. Yeah. Hey, and you look like, well, it's no big deal. Like it doesn't matter. You do a little bit of sideways lean this way. Hey, man, yeah. Let's talk about that. Cool. Or this way. The biggest thing is to get the coat back and get the hands in the pockets. Because that makes it sure that everybody can know that you aren't really working at this stuff. You're just kind of sitting there, just kind of chatting, making it up. Okay. The thing about hands in the pockets, it's great for the stand-up comedian because they can look really casual and they haven't really given a lot of thought to things. But if you want to impress people that you've got something definite, something certain, something you've actually learned and worked with and done, hands in the pockets is not going to present that. It's just going to annoy people. Another thing about hands in the pockets is you can't use your hands. Hey, I got my hands in my pockets, but oh no, they're stuck. Can't do anything. So your gestures are kind of like this. Everything kind of comes down to this gesture, nodding your head. Because you can't do anything else because your hands are in your pockets. Right there. So you want to know your audience, just kind of nod like this. Yeah. Hey, that sounds pretty bad. Yeah, gee. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Interesting point. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, gee, I'd love to make a big gesture, but got my hands in my pockets. Can't get them out. Oh. So we just have to kind of be like this. So if you want to look too cool for school, you want to look like you just made up your presentation yesterday, you want to look like a stand-up comedian out there, and you want to annoy your audience, this is move number 2. Very simple. Keep your hands in your pockets. Keep them right there, the whole presentation. Either sometimes, you might switch up, one hand out, other hand in, but keep those hands in the pockets because that'll really annoy somebody out there. And the final way to really annoy your audience is something a lot of people do, particularly new speakers. And I have a hunch they don't intend to annoy their audience, but that's really what they're doing. And it's a habit they get into, they aren't aware of, they aren't thinking about, but by doing it, It gets people annoyed, bothered, and the worst part is it hurts the speaker themselves. It's a habit they've got into that actually makes them more and more nervous on stage. It just increases that nervousness, just builds and builds and makes it worse and worse. So it's a good habit to get out of, because it both annoys your audience and it makes you more nervous, which is a kind of lose-lose situation. And that simple habit is this one. The hands. Hands get up and people start talking and their hands start doing all sorts of weird things. Some rub their hands. That's one, kind of creepy. Others just kind of like clench their hands. Hold them in front of their chest, perhaps. Just all this stuff you do with your hands. Clapping is a big one. Okay, now, here we are. Yeah, we're gonna. It's like you're congratulating yourself. Hey, 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 here we are. All right, ready to go. And what it does, of course, it blocks you from the audience and it makes you more nervous. If you weren't nervous before, just put your hands together, hold them like this in front of your crowd, and pretty soon you'll be pretty nervous. And it's annoying your audience. But it's something people aren't aware of. So they start talking like this the whole time, or like this. Or maybe they try to cover their hands in front of themselves in some sort of way, or they bunch their hands together, kind of like this, like they're praying, or like they're trying to cover something up, this sort of thing. And it just doesn't work. Get your hands up, they come together. Hands are like magnets that way. You put them like this far apart and all of a sudden they're together. Boom! And there's a problem with that. Blocks you from the audience and makes you more nervous. The audience can't get through, you're more nervous, and as you continue that way, you get more and more nervous. And yet people will do all sorts of strange things with their hands. Kind of rub them together, clasp them, squeeze them a bit. And this happens when people are presenting and they're really not quite sure what they're going to say, and their hands start operating all on their own. Because they're all up in their head. They're all thinking about what's going to be going on. And as a result, the rest of their body just kind of says, hey, you're not paying any attention to me? Well, I'm going to do all sorts of interesting things here. Yeah. And your hands together, then people start touching their face sometimes. Like this, or like this. And it can get kind of creepy, you know, this sort of thing going on while somebody's talking. It's just weird. So you don't want that to happen. Unless, of course, your goal is to annoy your audience. If you really want to annoy your audience, you really want to get them on edge, you really want to bother them, just do this sort of thing. It really works well. Because it leads to this. It leads to kind of a hand wringing up in front. And it just gets kind of strange looking. And people are kind of like, whoa, I don't know what's wrong with you, but you stay over there. I think you've got some sort of a disease or skin rash or something you're scratching up there. I don't know what it is, but I don't want anything to do with it. So if you want to put off your audience or annoy your audience, this is probably, of all the ways we talked about, this one is the best. It's simple, it's easy to do, and it's very effective. Because people start paying more attention to what your hands are doing and much less attention to what you're saying. So I think we got a winner here. Putting your hands together when you're talking, definitely going to annoy that audience of yours. And that's how you annoy your audience. It's really very simple. If you ever want to shut your audience out, and seem that you're superior to them in every way, in every means, just fold your hands across your chest. It's amazingly effective. All of a sudden, you're the one handing down the rules. You're the one large and in charge. And there are no elaborate gestures you can do. A little bit of a shoulder shrug is about all the empathy you can get across to your audience, all the connection you can make. You're completely shut off from them, they're shut off from you, and after all, isn't that the way it should be? You talking to them, and them having nothing to do but listen to you. And that certainly is annoying. Now, if that way of annoying isn't appealing to you, or if you find the audience isn't annoyed enough, you can always do the hands in the pocket gesture. Too cool for this audience, yeah. Put your hands in your pockets and kind of walk around. Notice, you can't make any gestures. Your hands are handcuffed in the same sort of way. So you just kind of talk and you walk. But you have that kind of look about somebody who isn't really prepared. Just kind of talking off the top of their head. Not really much thought went into this, just kind of, talking. You'll find yourself doing a lot of nodding, because that's pretty much only gesture you can make. You'll nod about everything, and the audience pretty much will be convinced that you're nodding because you can't do anything else. And that certainly will be annoying to quite a few. Now, should the folded hands gesture not work, and the nodding and the hands in the pockets not work, one final gesture you can use that's pretty much going to get everybody bothered in some way or another, maybe a little creeped out. And that is, of course, the ever together, the hands together gesture. The ever popular hands together gesture. It's great because you get your hands together and they'll start creeping up and doing things. This sort of thing, this sort of thing. And you'll make yourself even more nervous. So if you weren't shaky already and a little bit loose in your voice, you'll become shakier. And nothing more annoying for the audience than hearing somebody with a very shaky voice go on and on like this for about 5 or 10 or 15 or half an hour. 5 or 10 minutes or half an hour of this, and the audience is pretty much willing to just pack it up and go away. Now, of course, it's always remotely possible that you don't really want to annoy your audience. That you don't want to bother them, you don't want to upset them. And if that is the case, well, kind of focused on how to annoy your audience, so how to not annoy them, that's a different matter. But if, for example, you decided not to fold your arms, you made sure that wasn't a gesture used in front of your audience, that would help a lot. You just kept your arms down your side, casual, comfortable, looked at people, open to them, that's great. Very important to be open to your audience. At the same time, you have to be able to make gestures if you want to and if you need to. So, hands in the pocket kind of thing, this stuff, yeah, you're open, but kind of like stuck. So if you kind of get rid of the hands in the pocket gesture, you'll be even less annoying. So make sure you don't walk around with your hands in your pockets, because it's just a bad idea for a presenter. It looks bad. And finally, don't want to annoy your audience. Don't get those hands together. Just keep them apart. Even if you have them up, at least keep them separate. So you look a little bit open. Even if you're walking around like this is much better than walking around like this. Keep it open. Keep it receptive. And definitely will be less annoying than this sort of thing. So if you want to know your audience, here are some great tips for you. Use them. Guaranteed to work. If it doesn't work with the first one, keep trying different ones. If you can, use all three together. But of course, if you don't want to know your audience, just make sure that you have your hands separated, down at your side, that you're open and interested in what your audience has to say.